back to something very exciting. Today we have seen the first pictures of the new Lumineth Realm Lords for Warcry, that is. So someone posted on Reddit a link to the new pages out of the White Dwarf, in which we will get the Lumineth Realm Lords as Warcry warband. So I've wasted no time, put them into my data, and I'll be looking at very in-depth at these guys. So first off, you have a lot of leader options. You've got 2, 4, 6 leaders in overall, and 5 unit types, so a good selection of units there. The second thing that strikes me is that all of these guys are very cheap. This is not an elite warband, as some people might have expected with elves, but this is more of a high numbers warband. So let's quickly go through the stats. I don't want to waste too much time on that. You can read them yourselves as well. But we have the Vanara Leader. That's basically a female mage. Costs 125 points. Movement 5, toughness 3, 20 wounds. So not very survivable for a leader, but 20 wounds puts her up into a good range of not dying too quickly. Only 1 attack type, melee attack, range 1, 3 attacks, strength 4, 2/4 damage. So yeah, she's only 125 points. I think that's really the key here. All of these leaders are incredibly cheap. And what's very interesting is all of the leaders have their own leader abilities. So no leader ability is twice in this. I think that's highly interesting. Right. Then let's go on to the Stone Mage. Same movement. He has 4 toughness over the 3 toughness the Cathala has. Same 20 wounds. He's got the basic magic attack we've seen in many warbands before. 7 range, 2 attacks, strength 3, 3/6 damage. So yeah, potential to do high damage, but with the very low attacks count, it's rather unlikely. Then you've got the Steedmaster Leader, so that's basically your mounted option. He costs 205 points, so the most expensive unit in the warband, and still 205 isn't that expensive. So obviously 10 movement, that's amazing. Toughness 4, 26 wounds. Keep in mind though that he does have the mounted keyword, so he won't be able to climb. He's got a range of 2 with his lance, 3 attacks, strength 4, 2/4 damage. So at 4 average damage, not the greatest damage. Okay, I'm going to talk about that later, sorry. I'm just going purely through the stats here, and then in a second we'll talk about how they do points-wise and so on. Then we've got the High Sentinel Leader, and that is, I've checked, it's the cheapest leader option in the entire game. 110 points is ridiculously cheap for a leader. Movement 5 is good, toughness 3 obviously not as good, and 16 wounds. But what more can you expect out of 110 points? So if we compare that to, for example, Idoneth, you'll see that the Reaver champion is 135 points. So really cheap there. Range of 1, no ranged attack on him, even though he's basically the archer leader. 3 attacks, strength 3, 2/4 damage. So again, the 3.1 damage on average, not amazing to be honest, but not horrible, especially for the points. Now we've got the High Warden Leader. He's basically the leader type of the Spearman. 130 points, so slightly more expensive. You get 1 extra toughness, and he's got the same melee stuff. Obviously his own abilities, well, we'll talk about the abilities in a second. Then we've got this True Stone Sentinel Leader. He's basically the Stone Guard leader option. 140 points, is still a bit more expensive. Movement 3, and that's for all the Stone Guard. They are all movement 3, which is pretty slow. 4 toughness and 20 wounds. A range of 1, 4 attacks, strength 4, 2/4 damage. So a lot better, not a lot better, but somewhat better in damage than other guys in this warband. He's the only one with 4 attacks, putting him to 5/4 damage. Not bad, not great, but he's only 140 points as well. So now we get to the unit types, and we've got the Vanara Dawn Rider at 150 points, 10 movement, toughness 4, 18 wounds. So basically like the leader type, but 8 wounds less. We've got a range of 2 again, 3 attacks, strength 3, 2, 4 damage. So that's the exact same that the leader has as well. Oh no, the leader's strength 4 and this guy's strength 3. I don't think he's bad, although 150 points isn't super cheap. Then again, you do get 10 movement, so and 18 wounds, which is nice. We've got the Vanara Sentinel. These are the archers for this warband. Movement 5, toughness 3, 8 wounds. Slightly worse than the Idoneth Deepkin's archers. They've got 6 movement for the same points cost. And the ranged is exactly the same as well, so 15 range, 2 attack, strength 3, 1, 3 damage, something you see for a lot of the cheap archers in this game. I think this is still quite a good model. Then we've got the Vanara Warden, 80 points, so slightly more expensive. Movement 5, toughness 4, which is not bad. 8 wounds. A range of 3, so a very long spear these guys have. 3 attacks, strength 3, 1, 4 damage. Honestly, I think that's pretty solid. Again, 3 attacks isn't the most, but 1, 4 damage is really not bad, and 3 range is great. Then we've got 2 Stone Guard variants. We've got one with hammer and one with mallet. I think the one is two-handed, the other one-handed or something. So the hammer guy costs 105 points. He has only movement 3, toughness 4, 12 wounds. So for 105 points, that's actually quite fair. Obviously, the movement 3 isn't great. Then we've got 2-inch range on these guys, which is cool. 3 attacks, strength 4. So one of the higher strength characters in this. 2, 5 damage. So that's nice. And then we've got the Stone Guard with mallet. So that's the other weapon option. He costs 110 points. Slightly more expensive. 3 movement, toughness 4, 12 wounds. Same as the other guy. Range 2, 3 attacks as well. Then he's got strength 5 instead of 4, but only 2, 4 damage, so slightly lower on the crit damage. However, we'll see how that comes out in damage when we do the maths. So let's jump over to my other side, where I've taken a look at how these guys compare points wise. Let's quickly go through the leaders. So the Cathalar, the first one, the girl, lady, whatever, 4 damage on average, not bad, especially for her point value, that's medium. 3 actions to be killed by, sorry, that should be actions, not activations. Actions, there we go. To be killed, that is not bad. Point value of 0.2, that's in the medium range again. So she's okay. Then we've got the Stone Mage. Obviously his damage isn't great. We've seen this before. His these ranged attacks with 3.1 damage on average, they aren't great. They are not great. Slightly more tough because he's toughness 4, not toughness 3 like the other girl is. But he's slightly more expensive as well, so same point value there. And we've got the Steedmaster Leader. Same damage as the first one, as the Cathalar. Then we've got, but obviously he's a lot more expensive. He costs 205 points, it was, I think. So he's more expensive. However, he is a lot tougher, and therefore his toughness is in line with his price. His damage output is not. So that's a bit of a downside to him. Then we've got the High Sentinel Leader, so the archer basically that doesn't have a bow. 3.1 damage on average. We've seen that on quite a few fighters here. So as he is only 110 points, that is actually quite average, decent. It's easy to be taken down, only 2 actions, but again, for his points value, that is fine. Then we've got the Highborn Leader. He's doing the same amount of damage, costing a bit more, but you're paying that obviously for the higher survivability here. And then we've got the True Stone Seneschal. He's the guy that the leader for the Stone Guard. His damage is the highest in the entire warband, 5.4, which, mind you, it's still not great. If we compare this to other warbands, 5.4 is not amazing. In fact, I think that's he's exactly the stats of these guys, of my base opponent. So 4 attack, strength 4, 2, 4 damage. Still not amazing, but at least he's not horrible. Doing average, or actually good damage for his points value. So since he's also not very expensive, I think it's 140 points. That is good damage. Takes 4 actions to be taken down, which is also good point value. So in terms of point value, he's quite nice, although you do have to keep in mind that he only moves 3 inches. Now we get to the unit models here, and I think they are what makes or breaks a warband. We've got the Dawn Riders, 3 damage per action, not great. So obviously costing 150 points, that's less than average, but they do have average survivability. Then we've got the Sentinel, so the archer guys. They are only dealing 1.4 damage on average, but that's typical for archers. So most range guys deal less than average damage, which is fine because they do have 15 range. So I still don't think these guys are bad. However, they are very squishy at toughness 3 and 8 wounds, can be taken down super quickly. So, oh, this is activations, isn't it? I don't know. Whatever, so they can be taken down super quickly, so you have to really watch out for these guys. Again, though, since they only cost 75 points, that's all you can expect, really. Then we've got the Vanara Wardens, slightly more tough, so slightly harder to take these guys down. Higher damage as well, since they have 3 attacks, not only 2. Yeah, I think these guys are really good for 3-inch range. That is amazing. That's probably, must be amongst the highest range for infantry. So 3-inch range really good. Decent damage for their point cost, and decently survivable as well. I think the Vanara Wardens are very good. And then we've got the Stone Guard guys. The hammer is dealing less damage than the mallet on average. The only exception to that is against toughness 3. So if we were to use toughness 3 as our opponent, then the hammer would be slightly better. But as it is for toughness 4 and toughness 5 opponents, the mallet is stronger. And as you can see, he's got very good damage per point value. And yeah, he's the only one in the warband that's really on that high tier there. Although the normal guy with hammer is also not bad at all. Now, let's have a look at these abilities. It's actually 7 abilities, which is unusual. I think normally warbands only get 6, but since there's not going to be any cards for these guys, only the White Dwarf, I guess they thought it would be fine to have more abilities. And keep in mind, most of these are actually tied to a leader. Now, we have a double for all Vanara units, so for the Dawn Riders, Sentinels, and Wardens. And that is if 2 Vanara are in 1 inch, so if 2 other units with the Vanara rune mark are within 1 inch, enemies have 1 less attack against friendly models within 1 inch. It's a very interesting concept because reducing enemy attacks is nice. We all know attacks are a very important statistic in this. This could be very good. However, it requires a lot of planning. You have to get all of your models have to be close to each other, and then you could use this. And it could make a difference. Yeah, but it's going to be situational. It's not something you're going to use all the time. Then we've got the double for the Stone Guard guys, and that is just a flat take -1 damage from all hits and crits. I think we will see an FAQ very early on, because I'm sure this should say to a minimum of 1 damage. Because there's many fighters who deal 1 damage on a hit, and as this rule is written right now, the Stone Guard is not going to take any damage from those guys. I think that's not how it's meant to be, and I'm pretty sure we'll see an FAQ saying, hey, this should be -1 to a minimum of 1. But we'll see. I think this is amazing. This is an amazing ability that puts guys who are only in the medium box of survivability, makes them very survivable. So really good here, really good. Then we've got the High Warden. So that's our first leader guy. He can basically choose one enemy within 6 inches of him, throw 2 dice, and each 5 plus is 1 damage, each 6 is damage equal to the value. That's not bad, it's good damage, but I think it's not a great ability, and you'll see in a second when we look at other leaders that there are probably a lot better options than this. For example, we've got the High Sentinel. So that's the archer leader. And he can add 1 attack to all attack actions that target an enemy within 20 inches. So you pick one enemy fighter, and all attack actions that target him get +1 attack. I think that's very interesting, because it's basically like Onslaught, but instead of using it for one of your fighters, you use it on an enemy. And that can be very powerful. I think if you really need to take something down, if you want to take down, let's say, a red ogre or something that has a lot of wounds and is very dangerous, you pop this ability on him, and then all of your guys attacking him will have 1 extra attack characteristic. So if they can double attack, that's going to be 2 extra attacks. That can amount to a lot of dice for just the double. I think this ability is awesome. Yeah, and keep in mind the High Sentinel only costs 110 points, so he's a super cheap leader. Yeah, beautiful ability there. Then we've got a triple for all the riding units, for the Dawn Riders and the Steedmaster Leader, which is just the generic, after this fighter finishes a move, deal damage equal to the value of this ability. Yeah, it's okay. Not a bad ability, but nothing out of the box there. Then we've got a triple for the Cenari Cathalar, and that is throw a number of dice equal to the wounds one of your friendly fighters has taken. So you pick one friendly fighter in 12 inches who might have taken like any amount of damage, and then you get this many dice, how many damage he has taken, and for each 4+, you can deal 1 damage to one enemy of your choice in 12 inch. I think this is interesting. It would be very strong with a warband that has more wounds. In this warband, most of your fighters don't have a lot of wounds. So like say your Sentinels or Wardens, they only have 8 wounds. These guys only have 12, so you can't be taking that much damage. But in a perfect scenario, you have the Stone Guard with Hammer, for example, he takes 11 damage, and then you use that triple. You can throw 11 dice, and each 4+ is 1 damage against an opponent, so that should amount to 5.5 damage points. Not bad, but it's very situational. You can't use it turn 1. It's really going to be a bit hit and miss. I'm not sure I love this. And then we've got a quad for the True Stone guy. This is very interesting as well. He deals D3 damage to all enemies within 6 inches, so that's already quite good. I think. 6 inches is a big bubble, and having a lot of enemies in there would make this very valuable. And he halves movement of all fighters within 6 inches, but that's all fighters. As the ability reads, that also affects friendly models. Now, I don't know if this will be errated, it might be, that this only affects enemies, but if it affects friendlies, I'm not sold. I'm not sold on it. So I think out of all the leader abilities, the High Sentinel is the best one. Yeah, I really just really like the High Sentinel. He might be uh, he might be my favorite choice. So since we're at it, let's have a look at the list. So um, this is the list I've come up with here. I would choose the High Sentinel leader because he's super cheap, cheapest leader in the game. Um, you have a decent model, he's fine, but I would keep him mostly in the back and use his double because the double is really good. Then I would use 3 of the archer guys, the sentinels, because especially paired with this double, if you use the high sentinel, pick one target, and then all your archers suddenly they're up to 3 attacks instead of 2, and they'll be doing a lot more damage. So great synergies there. Then we've got 4 of the Wardens. I think for 80 points, they are great. 3-inch range, 3 attacks, 1/4 damage. Nothing to sneeze about there. So the Vanara Wardens are really good. And then I would use 3 of the Stone Guards with Mallet. The big downside are the movement 3, there's no doubt about that, but I think it's important to have some units with high damage output. You will need that in some cases. There's some warbands who are very tough to take down and you will need some serious damage output. And I think the Stone Guard with Mallet can do that. And keep in mind, the double for the Stone Guard is also really strong. So I think not taking these guys would be very sad. Overall, that's going to put you at 11 models, which is a lot. That's more than most warbands have. And I think this could be a very, very good warband. Not insanely powerful in terms of damage output, but yeah, really good for grabbing objectives, holding points. They've got something of everything, and I think that makes them highly interesting. So please do let me know what you guys think. I'm going to leave the link to the Reddit post in the description so you can check the cards out yourself. And see you guys next time.